Okay, so this is our advisor roundtable. This gives me the opportunity to chat with all of you as advisors to our RSOs. First of all, I want to say thank you. I know that being an advisor to an organization is a volunteer um, effort by you. I very much appreciate you finding the time to work with our student organizations. Thank you so much for doing that. I greatly appreciate it. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email is there that you see, d.lenhart@csuohio.edu. If I did send an email to all of you earlier, letting you know that I will be departing the university. I am being laid off effective November 15th. Right now, I don't have any information to share in terms of who will be taking over my roles here at Cleveland State. When I have information, I will share that with you and who your new contact person will be in my office. So one of the things that I've tried to do since I took over organizations in 2020 was to provide enough resources so that I'm not getting emails from students every other minute, or you're not getting bugged every other minute. I have a lot of links and pages and videos available for both you and for the students that you can refer to if you have a hard time finding me or can't seem to get in touch with me. I just wanted to provide a few. The Vikes Connect, this one is actually no longer works. I just found out today that with the university redoing all the websites, this was a redirect that no longer works. So it's not vikesconnect.csu Ohio, it's the csuohio.presence.io is the new website. We'll take a look at it in a minute. Of course, our office, again, I don't know what the future holds for us. And for the Center for Campus Engagement, after I depart, there is only one individual left. I don't know what's going to happen. But we may or may not have a Center for Campus Engagement. I'm not privy to those conversations. Also, as an advisor, I do want to make you aware of Vice Care and our care program. Since you are on the front line, so to speak, working with our students directly, please, if you encounter any problems or issues, please reach out to our care team. They will work with you and can assist you. I also provide a page on our website right now that we'll take a look at for the students and for you if you need anything. So I try to provide as many resources as I can to help you guys out. As far as advisor expectations, there's not a ton. It's essentially how well you work with your students in the organization. We would expect that you attend at least one of their meetings on a monthly basis, check in with them, see how they're doing. Some organizations, especially if you're returning, that they're pretty self-sufficient. Others need a little bit more hand holding. And as you work with your organization, that'll give you a sense for, how involved you should be. But we want you involved at least, on a monthly basis to go to one of their meetings, maintain contact with them. When I do my training with the organization officers, I tell them point blank that they must keep you in the loop and let you know what's going on so that you're not suddenly surprised about something. You're not required to, but we ask that, when your organization is holding an event that you attend, show your support. You are also not required to travel if students in the organization are traveling. We do have a lot of students who travel, particularly in the spring. They attend conferences and conventions, and they represent their organization on the national stage. You are more than welcome to also attend. and go along with them if you want, but we do not require that advisors travel with their organizations. If you have questions about travel and funding and that, you can always reach out to me and we can discuss that in greater detail. We would ask, of course, that you offer guidance regarding how things function and finances. We'll go over everything in a moment. And advocating for your organization is very important as well. If you feel as though there are policies or procedures that are hindering the organization that you advise in some way, we would hope that you would advocate for them. Come see me or somebody in my office or in the Division of Student Belonging and Success for more guidance and feedback if you need to. Do be aware that you are involved in terms of a second set of eyes for me and for my department here in terms of what students submit in Vikes Connect. So when they want to reserve space on campus to hold an event or even a meeting, or if they're doing anything off campus or traveling, anytime they're spending money or even asking for additional funding or changes of officers, all of those things, you will always be notified via email. You'll get an email notification from Presence to ask you to review the submission and approve or deny it. Okay. I will tell you, when you, as an advisor, deny something, it's just denied. I don't even weigh in on it. I respect your decision on that you know better because you work directly with your organization more than I would. So we ask you to review those things just to double check, make sure that you knew they were having an event and it's lining up with what you understood the event to be, so that you're okay with that as well. Okay. This goes duty to report, and I know as members of the faculty and staff here at the university, we're all trained on a lot of different things, and reporting is part of that. If you come into these sort of situations, we would ask that you contact either myself or you could contact the care team. They may refer you to student conduct, depending on the situation. But anytime that you're faced with a situation where you see that they're using maybe money the wrong way, like they ask for money for something and then they're trying to use it for something else. For example, students who may say to you, I'm thinking about going to this conference and representing, making sure that they're following the travel procedures. Because if you find out that somebody traveled that did not notify us, we need to know about that. We do have to report all student travel to the federal government. It's part of the safety report that the university has to do every year. And they need to know, students, where they traveled, where they stayed. It's all part of the federal requirement. So we need to know about those things. Hazing is super important. We do have anti-hazing training that officers should be going through. You're welcome to attend those as well. Any type of hazing activities, please alert us immediately. Also be aware that there are times when we'll get people who aren't students trying to take advantage of what student organizations are doing. So kind of be aware of that. Any kind of inappropriate, like if they're, you find out that they're having a beer pong game somewhere, I mean, let us know. We want to know about these things. Also fronting. Fronting, from what I've been told by conference services, can be a big problem. Fronting means, like, if an outside organization contacts your organization and says, hey, we'd love to come on campus and present what we do to see if we can get students to participate in what we do, whatever that might be, whether it's buying something or joining something or whatever. And what they're doing is they're using the organization to reserve space and use the space so they don't have to pay for it. because the university doesn't charge student organizations for the use of space itself. So they never get charged like a rental fee for a room on campus. And so sometimes outside organizations, sometimes it's internal. We might get an academic department that will try to do the same thing. And I've been told by conference services that if it's an academic department event, it has to be hosted by the academic department. Certainly the organization can partner and be part of that. But when you use the organization to get around fees, that's where the university has a real problem. So just be aware of that. Same thing with national organization dues. Be really careful and please, I would ask you as an advisor to be aware of that. If your club has national dues, how those are paid. We've had some issues in the past with trying to pay these. So we need to be aware if there are issues with the organization and national dues. So, anytime a student leader or just a student member is experiencing difficulties, please, we ask that you reach out to our care team. You can email them at magnusax@csuohio.edu. So when it comes to events, there are essentially three kinds of events that organizations can have. It'll either be an on-campus event, an off-campus event, or a travel event. When it comes to on-campus events, for organizations to reserve space, they create an event in Bikes Connect. You as the advisor are the first person that reviews and approves. Then I get notified. I make sure that everything looks okay on our end. I approve, and then conference services is notified. Conference services will reserve the space for the organization and then send an email confirmation back to them. Now, like I show students, you as advisors, be aware that conference services does make the final decisions on space, even if they don't schedule certain spaces. I know that certain colleges and departments may have meeting spaces that they let student organizations use, which is fine, but we still need to submit this event through Bikes Connect. I had a meeting with conference services last year, and they were concerned that some organizations were using space on campus that's controlled by a department and weren't aware of it. But they told me that, if there is an emergency on campus, like knock wood, we ever had an active shooter on campus, police calls conference services to try to find out what rooms are being used. So even though the space that your organization's using is controlled by a department, conference services still needs to know that space is being used, just so that if there is an emergency, they can let the police know. Also, conference services has what they call event classification. So depending on what the event is all about will depend on how far in advance they need to know. And I'll tell you right now that one of the things that I saw last year that held up or I had to cancel or deny events were because advisors weren't approving those events in a timely fashion. Okay, I always tell officers, when you submit something that your advisor has to approve, shoot them a quick email, say, hey, we're going to be reserving space on campus for an event. Look for the notification from presidents to approve it. Okay, because those will just sit there. I won't even know about them until you approve them. Also be aware that there are costs. The room itself doesn't cost any money, but if you need a space set up a certain way, or if you need additional equipment, that's when the organization will get charged fees. Housekeeping is a good example. The way housekeeping fees work is if you have an event after 2 p.m. during the week or on the weekend, the housekeeping charges a cleanup fee of $33 for every hour you held your event. So a 3-hour event would be $99. I have been told by housekeeping, however, if the club cleans up after their event and leaves the place neat, they won't charge a housekeeping fee. So I've been telling organizations that you should clean up after your event to avoid the housekeeping fees. Also, there are certain events, like if you have an event where maybe it's a fundraiser and it's a $5 cover charge and all proceeds go to a nonprofit, that's perfectly fine. But because there's cash on hand, there's going to be a requirement that security be present, and there's a fee for that. And so when you're working with your organization and you're planning events, you do have to consider those additional costs. Because if your club or organization doesn't have the funding themselves, they may have to ask a funding body for additional money to put on their event. Finally, just as a reminder, please, if you're playing music during an event, that the music is family friendly. We had a couple organizations doing an event in the atrium last year. Some of the music they were playing, let's just say it was of an adult oriented music. Okay. And some administrators were walking through at the time and heard it and didn't like it too much. So please keep the music family friendly and remind your students, no F-bombs. Travel. All right. That's the second type of event. I need to know 45 days in advance. And again, after I leave, I would hope that they would stick to these. The way travel works is that I do all the travel arrangements for the students. If you are planning to travel, I would check with your department secretary because they may have you do your travel authorization form with them. I do all the travel authorization forms for the students. I fill them all out. You'll sign them as advisors. Those have to be completed 3 business days prior to leaving for the trip. In addition, I do have a university credit card, so I make all their travel arrangements. You don't need to, your department secretary doesn't need to, I take care of that. I'll book their flights and pay for them, hotels, I'll take care of all that, pay for conference fees, all of that. Really, the only thing travelers should have to pay for out of their own pocket would be their meals. It's entirely up to the organization whether they're going to reimburse travelers for their meals. Some do, some don't. If they are, they have to turn in itemized receipts, and they have to do that within 10 business days. The treasurer of your organization is the only individual that has access to the finance tool. We used to give a lot of the officers and advisors access as well in the past, but we were getting duplicate submissions of things. It got a little bit too confusing, just having too many people using that tool. It's easier for just having the treasurer do it now. Okay, but you as the advisor, you're more than welcome to travel. If you ask for additional funding, let's say that your organization gets funding from student government, you can certainly do that. You may have travel monies available to you in your department. That's a possibility as well. But if you do plan on traveling, let me know. Also, there's an emergency contact form that needs to be done. I had mentioned before about students traveling and not notifying us. I will tell you this. If a student travels on their own, doesn't tell us, doesn't notify us, none of the authorization paperwork has been completed before they left, they just show up with receipts, we cannot reimburse that person. I can't backdate forms because things need to be approved prior to leaving. And so unfortunately, we wouldn't have the ability to reimburse that individual. So do be aware of that. That's why I say if you hear of somebody that's talking about maybe going somewhere, do be aware of that. The other type of event is an off-campus event, and I want to just stop right here just to kind of explain a little bit because it gets a little confusing for people. Well, what's an off-campus event versus a travel event? I would say that when it comes to travel, if you're going further than 25 miles from campus, if you're staying overnight, if any of the travel costs are being reimbursed, such as mileage, then think of it as a travel event. If the club decides to meet at Edgewater for a meeting picnic or do a fundraiser at a local church parking lot, car wash, or go volunteer at the food bank for a day as a group. Those are off-campus events, but they're not travel events. And so the travel paperwork doesn't need to be completed. So I know that we've had some clubs and organizations go to local places here in downtown. Those are off-campus events, but they're not travel events. Okay? If you're not sure, you can always check with us. When it comes to finances, one of the things that we ask is try to avoid spending money out of your own pocket. There's several reasons for that. One is because Cleveland State being a state institution in Ohio, we don't pay state of Ohio sales tax. Cleveland State is not a 501c3. We're not a nonprofit. We're a state institution. And so if you buy something at the store and pay the state of Ohio sales tax, you won't be reimbursed for that. There is a tax exemption form that I give to students if they do need to go to the store, so they don't get charged the state of Ohio sales tax. If they're shopping online, same thing applies, right? If you buy something on Amazon, you're still paying state of Ohio sales tax. Also, there are certain websites that the university simply won't reimburse you if you make purchases from, and that is Amazon and Apple websites. Unfortunately, we had a student last year spend a couple $100 of their own money buying things for their organization on Amazon, and we couldn't reimburse them. Cleveland State said, nope, that's a website that we don't reimburse from. So I teach the treasurers how to shop online. Let me know what they want to order. I'll place the order for them. I can reach out to these companies and set up a tax exempt account. And so I can order supplies that they need without paying state of Ohio sales tax. So be really, really careful, you know, and then the reimbursement process itself takes a couple weeks because we no longer have a cashier's office here. So it's not like they can just walk up to the cashier's office, give them some receipts in a form and get their cash back. So it does take time. Again, don't make any travel arrangements, please, for the students or secretary. We had that happen last year again, and things got a little bit messy. So let us work with your organization. All student organizations funds money has to be overseen by the university. CSU requires it. So they do all their banking within the university's accounting system. They can't open it, you know, if they were to do, say, a fundraiser or a bake sale and they made $50, they can't take that to Huntington and create a, you know, a savings account for their club. They have to use what we call their agency account. That is their bank account here with the university. Okay, so all the ordering, all the spending, everything is done within the university's accounting system. If they want to accept credit card payments, they can't use Venmo or PayPal or Cash App or GoFundMe or Eventbrite, nothing like that. The university has something called ShopNet. And so the treasurer and you as the advisor will work together to request a ShopNet account from IS&T. You as the advisor will also put in a request for O-Drive access. That's where the ShopNet reports are kept. And so you can go in there once a week, pull the report. If there's been any transactions, send them to the treasurer. They will create a deposit to let me know to update their balance in Vikes Connect. Vikes Connect is standalone. It doesn't talk to the university's accounting system. And so we have to do due diligence to stay on top of Vikes Connect to make sure it is accurate. We run reports and work with the treasurers to make sure everything is balanced correctly. Okay, so you got to use ShopNet. Also be aware that there are policies on campus for food consumed on campus. And again, those are things that we run through with the organizations. Just keep this in mind. As long as your organization doesn't spend $300 or more, you can get food from any restaurant or caterer you want to serve at your event or meeting or whatever the case might be. That's the biggest thing. Once you hit that $300 level, then there's policies start to really kick in. Okay, so be aware of those. Fundraising. We encourage fundraising. The thing you need to be aware of is gambling types of fundraisers are not permitted. So anything like a 50-50 raffle, any type of games of chance, which also includes bingo, things like Super Bowl squares, anywhere where somebody's paying some money with the chance to winning a larger pot of money. And money could be in cash or gift cards. I was told by the university that gift cards count the same as cash. So, gambling are a no-no, but there's plenty of other ways. I give them ideas of different fundraisers that they can do. When they do fundraisers, they have to deposit the money within 24 hours. That is a university policy. Donations, any donations that are given to the organization are not considered tax deductible because we're not a 501c3. If they want to, if your organization wants to, you can work with the CSU Foundation to set up a tax or like a tax deductible donation account. We have a couple of student organizations currently that have something like that. A good example is the student radio station, WCSB. They have a gift account that they set up through the foundation. And so that people in the community, when they donate, they can write that off as a tax deduction because CSU Foundation is a 501c3. And so your club organization can take advantage of that same thing. If you want to do that, if you're interested in that, contact me and I can work with you. One final thing with fundraisers, if you're doing a fundraiser for another organization, and I know some of the sororities do this a lot where they do fundraisers for like rainbow babies. What they can't do is say, student government, we would like to do a fundraiser for this organization. Can you give us 500? And then they take that 500 and give it to the organization. You can't do it that way. You can take that $500, put on an event where you raise funds, but you can't give it directly to them. Okay. And that's spelled out in funding guidelines that the students can view as well. And then if you do have any other questions, we do have a generic email for our department. It's just studentorgs@csuohio.edu. That's the little PowerPoint presentation. Before we jump into Vikes Connect, are there any questions? Anybody have any questions so far? Yes, somebody has their hand up here.
This is Eli, Dan.
Hey, hi.
I hate to say this, but I hate to see you leaving, man. You know what you're doing. My question is regarding the funding of the organizations. Remember, we had such a difficult time with the computer program that you were using to approve the events and communication with them. Was these kinks in the program online eliminated, or what is the status of what's happening there?
Okay, so I know if you guys are new, we had some problems with advisors getting error messages trying to approve things like finance requests and things of that nature, and they were getting errors and stuff. What I found out was that IS&T uses virus checks on our emails, and whatever the Microsoft virus checker was doing, it was activating those links. And so instead of you clicking on the link would just get clicked. And so when you would click on it, it would produce an error because the system said, well, you already clicked on it. Okay. So I worked with IS&T. We whitelisted everything from the present site. And I know that students are submitting things and I haven't heard of any errors. So knock wood, that's we've resolved that issue. Okay, so you shouldn't be getting if you do, let me know. But I haven't experienced that problem since. Yeah, and a few other people have told me that it's working for them. So I think you guys should be okay. But, you know, in the world of software, you just never know. But right now, everything is working the way it should be working. Stephanie, did you have a question?
Yes. I just now am understanding and hearing that you were saying that like the link, Student Government Association, they can create a account through CSU Foundation.
Yes.
With the money that, is donated, how can they use those funds? Are there guidelines on how they can use those funds as an organization?
They would use those funds just like they would use their agency account funds, or if they would use their funding that they receive from student government. The biggest difference is it wouldn't go through Vikes Connect. We don't track the gift accounts in Vikes Connect. So as an example, with the radio station, when they need to purchase equipment using the money that they raise from their fundraiser, when I put in their order in MagnaSmart, they have an account number for that gift account, and that's the account number I use.
A cap, or is there a limit to how much they can receive?
No, it's unlimited. It's how, you know, like the radio station, they raise anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000 during their big fundraiser every year.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
they could, you know, sky's the limit. You can raise as much as you want.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
The biggest thing is with the gift, if you set up a gift account, like a lot of times when people, you know, people just donate and say, hey, I just want to give you guys $10. I love what you're doing. They don't want a tax deduction on that, right? You set up that gift account when people are like, I want to donate and write that off on my taxes. That's when you need to set up an account.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to jump into Vikes Connect now. As soon as I find where I have it hidden. Oops. Let's see. And for just a minute here, get too many screens up. All right. So I have a pretend organization and a pretend student that I use to show people how to use the platform. And so we're logged into the student portal side of Vikes Connect. Stu Life here is my little fake person. He's a treasurer of my fake organization here. This is what everybody sees, whether you log in or not. People can view organizations, events, and so forth. Some of the forms that organizations use are found in here. You'll notice, for example, here's the quiz for those organization officers that missed my summer training sessions. I have a video and quiz that they complete to get their training done. So some of the forms that they use are found in here. The resources, there's the manual. I'm right now in the middle of updating it. I got some last minute changes. So, but everything I cover during trainings, what you guys saw during the PowerPoint can be found in here. So, you know, stuff about your agency account, stuff about funding, allocations. Allocation is when they're asking for money, tax exempt status, all of that stuff. So it's just, you can find it in greater detail here. It's always going to be that very second one down here. This top link though, this one I point out to everybody. I just got really tired of students emailing me all the time saying, I can't find this, I can't find that. So I just put everything on a page and said, there you go. So there's a link to that same manual. I have little short instructional videos if they forget how to do things. That recording that I'm doing right now will be found here for the other advisors as well. I'll put the PowerPoint up here for you so you can refer to it there. These are resources that Modern Campus, which is the company that produces Presence, They have their own resources of using the platform that you can view. You do have to be logged in though, and you have to have admin access to use those resources. For those organizations that get funding from student government, which is most, they have guidelines. Again, you can review those anytime you want. If you're an advisor to a law school organization, their funding body is Student Bar. Student Bar does their funding a little bit differently than student government does theirs. And then if you're an advisor to a sport clubs work with our sport club counseling for their funding. And so those are the three funding bodies, but by and large, most organizations can request additional funding from student government. So there are certain things they will and won't fund. They do have caps on how much they'll give an organization. So all of that is found in these guidelines. When it comes to food on campus, I provide both the policy as well as a waiver, and if they want Rascal House, the Rascal House order form. Okay. Waivers are typically used anytime you spend more than 300 and you don't want to use catering or Rascal House, you want to use a different restaurant, you have to ask catering for permission. That's what the waiver is all about. I see this a lot with some of our international student organizations, like our Pakistani Student Association. Sometimes they'll hold events and they want to serve traditional dishes from their home country, and catering can't make those, and Rascal House certainly isn't going to, but they have a local place that can. They'll go through the waiver process to get permission to use that restaurant. But again, they only need to do that if they're spending over $300. When it comes to holding events on campus, again, I give a link. This is the EMS calendar for conference services. This is how they check to see room availability. This is the events classification from conference services. So again, if an event is on the evening or weekends, they consider it a class 1 event. They need to know, and I'm talking conference services needs to know 30 working days in advance. I tell students to tack on an additional 5 working days to give you as an advisor the opportunity to review and approve. I saw a lot of last minute requests that you never even saw because I'd see them and knew that they didn't follow the classifications. If they don't follow this, we'll deny their events. Okay. This gets to be an issue, especially if they just want to do tabling. Like some organizations, they'll want to do a bake sale on the interlink, or maybe they're doing a little recruiting table on the interlink. They can't ask for a table the day before they need it. And I saw that way too many times last year. So, remind them, hey, you got to give everybody enough time. You can't just ask for things and expect it the next day. So I've been really harping on them this year to do better in terms of planning in advance. It'll make it better for you and easier on you as an advisor. So you're not feeling like you're being asked to do stuff at the last minute. That is not what they should be doing. So I love the mantra, lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. And so they know that. That's their responsibility. Okay. I also provide an event planning checklist. This was provided to me by conference services, and this is a way that students can start planning their event, thinking about costs, working up a budget. So I make that available. If they want to use it, they can. If they don't, that's up to them as well. Then costs. So room setup fees and equipment fees are on spreadsheets. Police charges if it's required, housekeeping charges. There is a cancellation form as well. Now this be aware of, okay? If an event is approved in Vikes Connect and the club either needs to cancel the event or change the date, time, or location, if they just go into Vikes Connect and make the changes to the event or delete it if it's canceled, that won't notify conference services. They have to fill this form out and turn it in to them. And then they can go into Vikes Connect and make their changes. If they reserve space and just simply do not show, conference services will charge their organization a $50 no-show fee. So be aware of that. And then I also provide some other stuff. The liability waiver would be used if you're holding an event where there could be injuries. We don't want to get sued. And sustainability provided us a green event guide that you can use. With events, sometimes contracts are required, and these are the contracts and information. Again, the treasurer of the organization is the point person for ensuring contracts are completed prior to the event. Promotional items, as an advisor, you might be aware of the IUC requirements for promotional vendors. So I provide them the list there. Here's all the stuff for travel. And Parking and Transportation does a van rental program. We had a couple groups take advantage of that last year. There's the link to ShopNet, so you can read through that. If they fill this out and let me know where they're going shopping, I'll fill out a sales tax exemption form. They come pick it up from me, and then when they go to the store, they don't pay the state sales tax. And if they want printing or duplicating, they fill this form out to get a quote from them. I got links to fundraising ideas. We had several groups take advantage of the Browns and Guardians vending opportunities. Our sport management club was spearing that effort and hooked up some of our organizations to do vending. And they made a couple $100 for their club. So, you know, there's plenty of ways besides gambling to raise money. I also provide other forms that they may use. This form, anytime there's a change in an officer, or if you as the advisor is stepping down and they're replacing the advisor, they fill this form out to let me know. I have to make sure that they're eligible because students have to be in good academic standing and be registered for at least 6 credit hours. And then finally, I also give them links to some promotions. I do control the content on the video screens in the Student Center. So if they want an e-poster run for their event, they can submit it here. And then I'm the person that creates the Viking newsletter that goes out to all the students every Monday morning. If you have an announcement, you can submit it there. So those are the main resources that I make available for students. Any questions on that? All right, we're going to go into the admin dashboard now. There is one other resource for help if you need it. And it's down here in the right-hand corner. It's this little help call out. So you can type in something. Let's say, for example, you wanted to create an online form. You can type in create form. If I could type there. And it'll give you a step-by-step walkthrough with little videos built in. You can also live chat. They have people online 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. So if you're experiencing a problem with the platform after I leave, you can also try their help there. Okay. Treasurers, I'm just going to point out some of the way that finances are built so that you have a basic understanding how these work. So the first thing that treasurers will see is the name of the organization that they can receive funding from. So in this example, this organization can receive funding from student government. When you open student government by clicking the plus sign, you'll see the name of your organization with a plus sign next to it. Opening that up will show the agency account. That's the bank account that students can deposit money in. If they set up a ShopNet account, every time somebody makes a payment using their credit card, that money automatically goes into their agency account. And there's their 5-digit agency account number. For their funding, we break their funding down into little sub accounts. So when they're asking for money for an event, that's where it'll go. Travel, other funding, and student government has this one-time 150. The allocated column shows you a running total. Okay, so over time, this will increase. It's the available column that they pay attention to. When they want to spend their money, they create an expenditure. This form I built for them essentially walks them through the spending process. So I ask them a question: what are you spending your money on? For example, what are you spending your money on? We're spending our money on food. Okay, well, is it on or off campus? It's on campus. Well, how much are you spending? We're going to spend about $350. Okay, who are you going to use? Oh, we're using another vendor. Oh, well, don't forget, you got to do the waiver. And how do they want to be paid? Oh, they're willing to take a purchase order. Great. Attach your quote. Have they done business with us? No. Okay, we need to set them up as a vendor. Give us this information. And then down below, they tell us which budget are they going to take and pay for it out of their agency account? Or maybe this is money they got from SGA and they're going to use that money. So they tell us which little pot of money that they have available to use. And then they submit it. And then you get notified and review it. I'm going to go in as me, as soon as I can find this here. Sorry about that. Screen. Okay. All right, so we're now in the admin dashboard part. When the students submit something, it'll show up as an alert under your action items. Okay, so for example, let's see. Here's an event example. So you can see that this is in green. I can see when the advisor approved, and then I reviewed it and I approved it the same day later in the afternoon. Christine works in conference services, so she's been notified. Once she approves this, this will turn green and she'll receive or she'll email whoever submitted it. So in this instance, it would be Clara here. We get an email from conference services confirming their space reservation. This event request form acts very similar to the spending form and all the other forms. But I'll show you something that, let's see if I can find it here. So when you review an event request, now you'll notice here the advisor approved, I approved, but conference services denied because the space wasn't available. Okay, so when you're doing an event request, you can deny it if you want to. If you look at it and say, no, that's not right. That's not what we agreed to. Let's find another one here. So Audrey here, she submitted one. So one thing I don't like about this platform is it takes a while to load. So again, you can see here that now Christine is working on this and she'll eventually approve it. But you'll have an approval button up here if you approve. Otherwise, you just pull this little and just select deny. It's the same thing with finance requests. When you get a request in, you could certainly go in there and deny the same thing. So like here's an expenditure request. And you can see that we're waiting for the advisor to approve that. Okay. And so there is a process, and the advisors are always going to be the first person to review and approve those requests. So they will show up as an action item here. You just click on it and either approve or deny the request. If you're not sure about something or you're getting error messages, reach out to me. But again, you shouldn't be getting any error messages now. We should have that resolved. But on the back end, that's what you do. Your organization is right in here. So when you are in the platform, you'll just see the name of your organization. We're going to pick on one right here. We'll just use, I don't know, we'll use Constitution. It's a law school. The details section, they can edit anytime. You can as well as an advisor. Some of the information for the organization are found here. For example, there's their agency account number is found in their details section. That's where their constitution is kept as well. Some of this information is what students see when they visit their page on the student portal side. And notice that organizations have what we call a join link. It looks like that. So anybody that comes to you and says, I heard you're the advisor of the such and such club. How do I join? You could just say, go to our page in Vikes Connect and click the join button. As soon as they do, they're going to show up on your organization's roster in the member section right down here. You can also invite members and then they show up under pending invites. We tell organizations to keep an eye on their roster. If they notice somebody's listed, but they know they're no longer a member, maybe they graduated, transferred, whatever, they can come over here and then deactivate their membership. We want them to strive for an accurate roster. Okay. They can also create forms, online forms, if they want our RSVP form, an application. Some organizations use the forms tool to hold their officer elections. So they can do that. When it comes to events, we are really, and this is not a good organization to show you. I apologize. I'll pull up Campus Activities Board because I know they got a lot of events. We are really encouraging students to check people into events. We want a better sense for attendance at organization events. It's really easy to check people in. They can either use the desktop version by clicking attendees, add attendees, and let me stop this. Wait, let me stop this share here. They look like this. They're little black card reader boxes, and it just plugs right in. What you do is you pull up your event, you go to that attendees, you have this plugged in, and you just card swipe. And when you card swipe, their ID number will just show up right here. If they don't have their ID, you can just type it in manually and click check in. The other way that they can do it is by using the mobile app. So there is an app that's called Modern Campus Involve. Once you install it, it'll look like that. And notice here, I can go up here and log in. There's my name, and it makes a little QR code for yourself. And so students who are checking people in can collect attendance. They just click and then find their event. And if they select barcode, they can scan the student's barcode. So if the other student has the app, they can just check them in that way, or they can just click manual entry and enter in their ID and check them in that way. This is really useful if you're holding an event in a location where there's multiple entrance points, and then you just have somebody stationed with their phone at an entrance point, you can check them in. So you can have multiple people doing that. Okay. My hope was that I was going to start a points program so that when students attend events and they check in, they earn points, and then they can turn those points in for swag. I was trying to get more attendance at organization events and get more engagement and involvement. So my first step was getting everybody used to using Vikes Connect and using the mobile app and checking people in. So that was my goal for fall semester, and hopefully implement it in spring. Now I'm going to tell my administrators what my plans were, whether they carry through with them, I don't know. But I still would like to see people checking students into events. They can also use the check-in if to take attendance at meetings. I know that some organizations have requirements to keep membership. You have to attend so many meetings. And so some of them, they put their meeting in as an event and then they check everybody into that event. So they take attendance. So there's a lot of different tools and ways you can use the platform. We're running up against it. It's almost 1 o'clock. So we'll end here. I'm going to stop the recording.